Hey guys, today we're going to go over the sequencer that allows for high-res video recordings of your Unreal scene. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make a new sequence. So if we go under cinematics, we're going to add a level sequence. And for anyone that's ever worked in Premiere Pro or even After Effects, this interface might look slightly familiar. And the first thing I'm going to want to do is add a camera. So right now, by adding this camera, it is now going to shoot the entire scene from this camera, and I'm currently in piloting mode. So anywhere I move around in the scene, actually, in addition to moving around the scene, piloting my camera. So let's go, it's nice. Okay, right there. So my pilot is active. I'm going to stop piloting, and there's my camera. And now I get an insert from my camera. If I zoom out a little, I see my camera right there. Something else you might have noticed is it's created a keyframe. So it has set up my X, Y, and Z location in addition to my rotation. And it's saved all of that data so that on frame 0, this is where my camera is going to start. So I'm going to create a few more keyframes so we can create a little bit of movement with the camera. This timeline here is in frames. That's never been very helpful for me, so I'm going to show time as seconds. And it's only 5 seconds. I want something a little bit longer, so let's do something for 20 seconds. Okay, great. So I'm going to turn this on. This is going to create a keyframe every time I move the camera. So a couple seconds later, we're going to just kind of like rotate around a little bit. All right, great. Couple more seconds, and we'll continue to move around. And we can see it's automatically creating those keyframes for us. And let's move around a little bit more. Okay, great. So I'm going to hit save. The sequencer is automatically added to my world outliner right here. And I just want to make sure that I hit autoplay so that when I play the scene, it will automatically follow the sequencer. So I hit play, and now my camera is automatically moving. Oh, and we'll just extend this out. There we go. Now you might have noticed right away there's that weird gray ball. This is the player start. And because Unreal is a game engine, it just assumes you want a player start. If you delete it, it will automatically create a new one for you. So I just tend to hide it. So we're just gonna put it over here where we'll never see it. Okay, great. And now we have this beautiful, dramatic swing around shot of this giant cone floating in the middle of the world. Awesome. I'm going to give this cone some material just so it's not super boring. Okay, that's a little better. Maybe the floor can have something. Okay. Yeah, that works. All right. So we can also bring in, let's go ahead and bring in a cube. We'll give this a material. So in addition to creating transitions with our camera, we can create transitions to anything in the world. So for example, with our cube, we can add the cube as a track to our sequencer. And just like with the camera, we can go ahead and create keyframes. So I can create them, of course, using this automatic keyframe here, and I can manually create keyframes by hitting this little button. And then I can move along, and we can start rotating this, and we create a keyframe because we have this button turned on. And it's going to, what's nice about the keyframes is it's not going to do harsh. It's not going to like turn, turn, turn. It's just going to slowly rotate based off of my keyframes. So if I hit play, we're turning, and we can see this cube is also turning as well. I don't know why this isn't red. Oh, this needs to be built. Okay, great. Let's get that. It just doesn't want to be red. Okay, not a big deal. So our camera's moving, our cube is moving, everything's good. There's a lot of other things we can do with this. So for example, we can also bring in avatars and animations. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new folder for our avatar. And let's find an avatar. So I have Tyler, and Tyler is a skeletal mesh with some animation attached. All right, great. And then I'm also going to bring in one more animation file. I believe this one will work. Okay, great. First thing I'm going to do is just get rid of the T-pose. Ooh, that retargeting was not ideal, but that's okay for now. It's kind of interesting. And let's just get rid of the T-pose here. Oh, so much better retargeting on this file. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the skeletal mesh, not the animation, but just the skeletal mesh into my scene. And then I'm going to add the skeletal mesh to my sequencer. So for our cube, we only get the transform as a set of properties. With Tyler, our skeletal mesh, we also, in addition to transform, get animation, and we can add animation tracks. So I can add the different animations. And then I can move these. And let's make this bigger so I can see everything. Okay, great. And we're going to trim this a little bit so we can add this all in there. And we're going to trim this even more. And I can add in my other animation. And I can also blend them a little bit. So while it won't be perfect, it does allow us to go from one animation to the other. And the legs do something funny, but that's only because the retargeting clearly was botched on this first animation track. All right, so let's give that a shot. So there we go. Now we have Tyler doing the animation. And then it's going to blend and go to that second animation. And now something else we can do is we can also use event triggers, so we can trigger things happening in our blueprints in Sequencer. This is really nice, so if you need something to happen at a particular time, time is not very reliable while you're rendering in Unreal, because if you're rendering 4K video at 60 frames per second, it might only be rendering at 3 frames per second, so you'll hit a key press 20 seconds in, but really it's going to be like 2 seconds in. So to make sure your timing is precise, you can add event triggers in your sequencer, and you'll have precise timing this way. So let's go ahead and create a blueprint. And let's use a point light. So I'm going to add a point light to my viewport. And for something fun, we'll make the light color. Oh, that's nice. And what we'll do is we're going to add a custom event. And we'll call this lights off. And we're going to toggle visibility on our point light. So at a certain point, we want the lights to turn off. And we will bring that light into our world. Let's see what this looks like. All right, it's pretty pink. We can tell there's a pink light. Okay, wonderful. So we have this pink light and we have this custom event we called lights off. So inside of our sequencer, the first thing we need to do is we need to add that blueprint to sequencer. And then for track, we're going to add an event. Now, wherever we put this keyframe, we'll determine when this event gets triggered. So I'm going to scrub, where do I want this? Right here. And we're going to add that keyframe. So now that we have the keyframe, we're going to right click under properties, under unbound. We're going to go ahead and create a new endpoint. And when this gets triggered, we just want this to go to lights off. And make sure we have our target. All right. So at 8 seconds, we're going to have this keyframe. In the sequence director, it's going to trigger this custom event, which will then toggle visibility on our point light. So let's give that a shot. So I'm going to hit play. And right about now, that light should turn off. And there we go. And this could be used, you could have events that spawn particle systems, you could have events that spawn new dancing tilers. There's a lot of different options we can use for this. So finally, we've done all this with Sequencer, but we still don't have a video of our Unreal scene. So what we're going to do is we want to render this to a movie or image frame sequence. So there's a few ways you can do this. You can either do a video sequence as an AVI file, or you can do an image sequence, which is what I recommend. PNG tends to be the highest quality. And then you can use something like After Effects or FFmpeg to stitch it all together. But we'll just do AVI video sequence for now. We don't have any audio. 30 frames per second is fine. I'm okay with this resolution. And everything else seems good to me. So we're gonna go ahead and capture movie and make sure we save everything. And of course, the more complex your Unreal scene is, the longer this rendering will take. The higher resolution, the longer the rendering will take, depending on your computer that you're using, depending on the frame rate. All of this will determine how long rendering takes, but I have a pretty simple scene, only doing 30 frames per second, only doing 1280 by 720, and I have a pretty nice laptop today, so I'm hoping this won't take very long. And there we go. I can open my capture folder. If you don't click that in time, in your project under saved video captures, there you go. And now I have a nice rendering of my Unreal scene. And there the light turned off, and now Tyler's switching animations. And there we go. So that is just a quick intro into Sequencer in order for us to make high-res, 30 frame, 60 frame, however many frames per second video renders of your Unreal scene. I hope you guys enjoyed.